Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Amelia from Booktopia, and welcome to today's special Ask Me Anything with Tom Tilley. Just bear with me and we'll get Tom to join.
Hello.
Here we go. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you so much, Amelia. How are you?
I am good. I'm very good. Thank you for everyone who is jumping on this Ask Me Anything with Tom Tilley. We're live on Booktopia's page and on Tom Tilley's page. I'd just like to begin, firstly, with acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet and pay my respects to the elders past and present and emerging. And I extend this to any First Nations people who are watching. So I'm very thrilled to chat with you this afternoon to TV and radio personality Tom Tilley. It's obviously great to chat with you. You've got your book coming out in just a few days. Could you tell us a little bit more about that, Tom?
Yeah, so this is 4 years in the making. This is my book, Speaking in Tongues, which I imagine, Amelia, that Booktopia are sending out to people right now, all those signed copies that we signed.
On the publication date, on Wednesday, that's when all the magic happens. All the books will go out to everyone.
Yeah, so yeah, this is my book, and some people know me from my work on radio and TV, and I always worked really hard to be an impartial journalist, not to put too much of my own story and my own views into my work. But I've been sitting on a pretty big story about my childhood that I've never really shared in full before, and I got to a point where I wasn't embarrassed by this story anymore, and I was ready to tell it. And a book, a memoir, was the perfect way to do it because it could really go into the full depth about this story, um, all the people in it, all the ideas, all the things I had to unpack to get out of this world that I grew up in, which was this really hardcore Pentecostal church that was obsessed with speaking in tongues.
Yeah, it's obviously a big revelation, not just for the public, but probably for those near and dear. I'm sure we'll get into it. So we're very excited on Booktopia side to do that with you today. And for those watching, if you haven't heard of Tom's book, Speaking in Tongues, it is out on Wednesday, the 4th of May, very, very soon. But for limited time only, you can order from Booktopia and get the memoir signed by Tom as well while stocks last. So we highly encourage you to check that out in our link in bio, or you can search on Booktopia, and we definitely think those will go fast. So
Hope
be
so.
sure to jump on that. Don't miss out. Obviously, for those who are with us this afternoon, thanks for being here. You can feel free to send in your questions for Tom. There will be an interactive Q&A. So feel free to check out the question mark icon that is in the bottom right corner of your screen. And if you pop your question there for Tom, we'll get through as many as we can as part of this Q&A this afternoon. Feel free to say hi in the comments. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Obviously, there's people probably all over who are tuning in. I hope if you can let us know in the comments where that you're from, that's really great to hear. Hopefully some regional viewers.
Yes.
We'll see how we go. We'd love to know where you're tuning in from. And obviously as well, if you've already got Tom's book, if you've pre-ordered, let us know, share the love. You can send through a wave or a like, and yeah, we highly appreciate it. And yeah, we'll kick off. We'll get into asking Tom all the questions. It'd probably feel strange to be on the other side, Tom, so I'll do my best. Let's kick off with a question around the media. How come the media and the news fascinates you so much?
Because the media and the news are reporting on life. And I never expected that when I got into journalism, it would be super news focused. I actually thought I might get into making documentaries and longer form content. But news is sort of telling their everyday stories, having the debates that need to be had, and you know, there's just so much work there, and that's where kind of my career opened up, and I got this chance to work on this radio show called Hack, which just happened to be a daily show, and since then I've been working on daily shows ever since. And so that's always been a bit of a tension for me, actually, because being on daily radio was amazing. I got to talk about all the biggest things that were happening throughout those years that I've been live, and now with the podcast and the briefing as well. I sort of feel like I'm getting the chance to be part of all the big conversations that happen in our society, which is really cool. But at the same time, part of me has always longed to go deeper, and like, there's nothing deeper than a book, you know. Like, sure, doing a documentary would bring a lot of depth as well, but you're still cutting the, you know, the interviews down really short, just getting these really punchy moments. And that's because of people's attention span when they're listening to radio or watching TV. But a book is a juicy way to tell a story. You can really, and this, I've only just learned this through writing my first book, you can really immerse, and it's the psychological and emotional journey, I think, can be so much richer in a book than almost any other medium. So that's why it's been super exciting for me to have a chance to write this book, to get the backing, to be able to spend a lot of time on this. I started this 4 years ago, so it's been a massive journey to get to this week.
4 years in the making, yeah. That's I mean, I'm sure a lot of authors who may be watching may relate. You know, but 4 years for long form content. Yeah, obviously we're in a world where short form is the thing, and we're here today for about half an hour. So, you know, I guess as Tom's mentioned, you know, if you've got time to spare, you can jump into a book and you can definitely learn a lot. So for those who are still trickling in, sorry, just for anyone who's trickling in, let us know if you've got a comment for Tom, a question, sorry, for Tom in the bottom right corner. Sorry, Tom.
Yeah, I just saw someone in the comments just say very cathartic and healing. And yeah, a lot of people ask me, was it therapeutic to write the story? And in some ways it really was, to really think deeply about the things that have happened in your life, why they happen, also to think deeply about your own patterns of behavior and the way you've responded to things. And that's not always like a bad thing of dragging yourself over the coals. Like, that can be like, oh, okay, these are the moments where I've shown some resilience, or, you know, by the end I realized that I'd approached every situation in life the same way, that I was careful but extremely enthusiastic, to the point where I ended up taking a lot of risks. But with the big decisions in life, I always approached them really carefully, but there was a driving kind of optimistic kind of energy behind it all. And I could see that that's how kind of everything unfolded for me, for better or worse.
Yeah, wow, that's very insightful. I feel like, you know, as you mentioned before, being a presenter, being very impartial and being almost authentic to the other person's point of view, and giving them their platform and their time in the limelight. It's almost that complete opposite now, where we get to see, you know, the truth as you experience the truth laid bare. And that obviously is probably for a lot of people going to be a surprise, you know, because I can say from my own memories from listening into Triple J Hack, and just, you know, you spend that time listening to someone on the radio or wherever it is, and you almost have that distance thing where you feel like you know them, but you really, really don't. So
that's a really good point. Radio is funny like that. Radio has this real sense of intimacy, and I think that comes down to, it's the human voice, and the voice is such a direct reflection of, well, some people say the voice is a window to your soul, because you hear so much in someone's tone, in their accent, in their energy. Like it all comes through the voice. So for a radio presenter, especially if you're listening in headphones or in podcasts, it's very visceral, you know? And so, yeah,
Yeah.
you quickly get the sense that you really know that person, and maybe on some level you do, but you actually might not know anything about their life.
Yeah. Can safely say I did not know anything of what was in your book, and it's a big revelation. Not to be so biblical, but yeah. I guess we'll throw to another question we have, but we'd love to have as many people send through questions as
Yeah,
possible.
send
So
your questions in.
feel
I'll
free.
answer anything. Go for it.
Go for it.
Almost.
Got the question mark. That's where you want to throw it. But yes, we do have regional people viewing. Apologies for the pronunciation of the towns. But we see you and we notice you, and we are thankful you're here. And we have mentions that people have already got the book ordered, so that's fantastic. We can't wait to deliver it for you. I guess one question probably springs to mind is, what's the hardest news story, Tom, you've ever had to report on?
What kind of difficulty do you mean?
I think we'd all be curious to see from your perspective what you would define as hard, because covering news, a lot of it can be difficult. It could be like crime that might, for us, it may seem like that might be a difficult news story to cover, but for the people behind the scenes in media, is that hard for you? Is that not? Is there other topics that we wouldn't think may be hard to report on?
Yeah, well, some topics are hard for different reasons. So something might be hard to cover live on radio because there's an epic amount of detail and expertise needed to understand it. So I always was worried about taking on Minister Greg Hunt on climate change when that was his portfolio, because he would just spray figures at you, and you're like, is this true? Is this fake news? What is he saying? Are there contradictions there? Should I have done more reading up on this or that? Same with Malcolm Turnbull when he was communications minister, and you'd be arguing the finer points of broadband policy. Then some topics are really hard because there's real sensitivities, and that people listening could be really hurt by certain arguments, and so you're trying to weigh up the sensitivities around those particular people. So that can be really hard. Some things are just really politically charged. Anything around race or gender, sexuality, navigating the same-sex marriage debate in 2017 was really hard because it was just so fiery. The other thing that's hard is I guess getting the editorial choices right about who you're talking to, how much time you give people, all those sorts of things. And I was also on air as social media was only just getting started. Like I'd already started at Triple J when Twitter was invented, when Instagram started.
So true.
And so
yeah,
we all know how much the tone of online discourse changed throughout those years, and how hectic it got on social media, and how polarized and angry people got. And then, I think the algorithms clocked on to the things that travel best were the angriest. And so then you end up getting like in these heated debates, and even society itself was getting more fractured, and you're trying to balance that as a host of a show. That's the kind of stuff that was pretty hard.
Yeah, wow. And I guess in terms of being on a lighter front, what are your favorite memories, for working on Triple J or other sort of places?
I mean, people just surprise you. People call in with all points of view, or just bring stories that you never expected, make you laugh. We got pranked pretty hard a few times on Triple J, and sometimes that was
Okay.
really, really serious and bad. And then sometimes it was very funny. There was a group of guys from the Central Coast who would call in and use each other's names and tell embarrassing stories that for quite some months we didn't realize weren't true. And we had this serial caller called Moffy who would just call in with the best stories. And then we found out Moffy was someone else, was one of his mates who he was sending up. He still reckons the stories were true, they just weren't his. So,
Okay.
yeah, we all got a laugh out of that one.
There you go. Doppelgangers on the radio
Yeah.
for a laugh.
Fake
That's
doppelgangers.
so funny. Silly doppelgangers. Yeah, I guess that leads into the next question is, have you done anything embarrassing on air?
Oh, God, yes, I have. Now, there's a bit in my book where I talk about something else that I hadn't talked about much in public before, was that my friends and I used to throw these illegal rave parties around Sydney. And once I was on air with Christopher Pyne, who was the education minister at the time, and I was grilling him. I was nailing him to the wall. He was so inconsistent. His argument wasn't stacking up. The challenges I was mounting on him were working. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, in this interview, Christopher Pyne says to me, Tom, as someone who throws rave parties as a sideline, I would have thought you would have been more glass half full. And I was like, oh my God, where has this come from? Have his staffers been got a dirt file on me, or like, is this going to end up on the front page of the Daily Telegraph tomorrow? Like, my mind was racing, and I was quite embarrassed in that moment. But it turned out that a friend of mine in the media, Ben Fordham, had spoken to Christopher Pyne earlier that day, found out he was coming on Hack, and said to him, hey, just drop it into the conversation somewhere, something about rave parties. And so
Oh my God.
this was a prank between Ben Fordham and Christopher Pyne to deeply embarrass me, and as it turned out, derail the interview for at least a minute or two.
Oh my gosh. And, I guess no one would be none the wiser until you just told us. So
That's right. That's a scoop for you.
I guess when you're on the radio, you can't see if you're blushing, right? So
Yeah.
so probably got masked. No one knew.
Yeah.
Sweating, panicking, all of that. I can only imagine if your secrets are found out by anyone, But we might throw over to the audience now. We've got a few questions, so thank you so much for those who have sent a question in, did a comment like, we are loving this and we'd love to see it come through. We have a question from, let's see if I can pronounce it correctly. We've got from Molly Mott 3, and Molly asks, do you still have your faith without all the man-made rules?
Can you just say that again? Oh, I see it there. Without all the man-made rules.
It's on screen now.
Yeah. Look, Molly, it depends what kind of faith you mean. I've got a lot of...
Let us know in the comments, Molly, if you can.
Yeah, Molly, if you want to chime back in and clarify, if you mean, do I still have a Christian faith? I don't know how much of the story I want to give away here, but that I go on a big journey from the church that I grew up in, and the church that I grew up in was very unusual, particularly with its focus on speaking in tongues. Okay, do I still believe in Jesus? Molly has just clarified. Yeah. All right, I guess I'll have to give a little bit of a spoiler. Oh, I really don't want to.
There's obviously a long form answer, Molly, in the book. If you want a longer form.
That is such a crucial part of the book, because there was a lot of questions around the church. Someone's just written, what was the church name? The church name was the Revival Center. It's changed its name. It's now known as the Revival Church. So there were a lot of problems I saw with that church. But then I went to a lot of other churches, and the sort of journey went on from there. Molly says it's okay. I don't have to answer that question directly. Thank you, Molly. It's a very central question to this whole story.
Good spotting then, Molly. Yeah, you're on the right.
Yeah, thanks for jumping back in. I I want to do the right thing by Molly, but I also want to do the right thing by hopefully the many people that will eventually end up picking up this book.
Yeah, well, we've got a similar question. We've got from Jarrett Church. Have you heard anything from the church?
Well, Jara is someone I know who is actually in the story, and no, I haven't.
Oh,
He's an old friend of mine. He's very much in this story. So
thanks for tuning in, Jarrett.
yeah, thanks for jumping in, Jara. Hope you're doing well today, and Tail and Bend. Hope the river's looking beautiful. Um, I haven't heard from the church, so I don't know if people are going to reach out and want to talk to me, or tell me that they're unhappy that I've shared this story. The book involves a lot of critique of this particular church, but I've tried to do it respectfully and just honestly tell my point of view. Um, Amelia, you've read it. You've got a sense of how I tried to navigate that. Um, yeah, so that's the answer to that question. I haven't heard from them yet, but it's not on the shelves yet, so we'll see.
That's it. It's obviously not long to go. So, I mean, at this point in time, it's good to know there hasn't been, but obviously, for Tom's sake, you know, I'm sure the door is sort of open. But
Yeah,
yeah, it's
that's true.
obviously it's a bigger story there. So I think it's always good to talk about spirituality, talk about systems and things, and you know, as Tom's mentioned, to be as respectful as we
Mm,
can. So obviously, if this is highly of interest to you guys, feel free to put any other questions in the question icon just in the bottom right corner. That'll be really helpful for us, and we can share it on screen so for everyone can see that. Just as some of the comments can go really quickly.
mm.
So we would love that if we would do it that way. We've got Mindful Joey has put a comment. I went to a Pentecostal church and it took me a long time to feel safe in my body and to overcome the beliefs driven into me. Thanks so much for sharing that. That's obviously very insightful and relevant to this conversation.
Yeah, it really is. I don't know exactly what you're talking about in your case, so I don't want to presume too much, but the closest tie-in that I can relate to that comment is the fact that I was a virgin until I was 23. And despite leaving my church and its strict rules, it took me years, literally, until I was ready to take that step because of all the meaning that had been attached to it. Yeah, so that's pretty deep and personal stuff. And for me to take that leap, basically in our church, you got kicked out permanently forever if you had sex before marriage. And so that was a really heavy reality that we grew up with. Um, so they actually brought in a harder line rule when I was 15, and I write a big chapter about this in the book, that our church was already pretty hardcore, but they decided that the rules weren't tight enough. So there was a massive split in our church. It broke in half because one half of it wanted stricter rules about sex before marriage. And um, as was so funny to write about, my dad somehow decided that we needed to be on the harder line. So
Oh no,
that
Tom.
was that was a phone call.
You're
I'm
back
back.
with us, Tom.
Yeah, sorry. Um,
Cool.
and so yeah, my dad
All
took the
good.
hard line, and so we ended up in the half of the church that was no sex before marriage, and if you broke the rule, you were gone. So even though after I left the church and went through so much stuff, um, it took me a long time to feel comfortable with that.
Just a question off the back of that, Tom, did you share the book with family and friends when you wrote it, or did their response influence anything you wrote in any way?
Yes. So I showed my family excerpts, or my parents excerpts from my writing before I even signed the publishing deal.
Okay.
My parents live in Adelaide, and I took the time to fly over to visit them from Sydney, show them some of the bits I'd already written, to see how they felt about it, and to see how if they were okay with me sort of going ahead with this publishing deal. And yeah, I wasn't sure what I was going to do if they said, no, we really don't want you to go there. But I sensed that they were up for supporting me, but I wanted to give them a bit of a sense of what I was planning to write, how it would feel, the sort of tone of it. And so, yeah, we had this pretty emotional moment where my dad said, you know, he actually burst into tears and said, I think it's got a really fair tone to it, and there's humor in the story, and it's well told, and yeah, we trust you to go ahead. So really brave from my parents. And
Yeah.
you know, I won't give away too much about the journey our family's been on, but it's been intense, and it never would have, no book would be worth me ruining my family for. And so I wanted to have their buy-in, but then once I got their buy-in, I didn't show them it until it was finished. And so
Okay.
they got a very late stage draft at Christmas, just gone. And then yeah, we had some more emotional moments where we sat down and talked about it. And my family read it at different speeds. My dad read it in about 12 hours because
Okay.
he's a big reader, but he also had
That's dedication.
the most at stake here. He's like, should I be calling my lawyers, Tom? I'm like, well, read it and let me find out. And yeah, then the rest of my family read it, and my mum's just chimed in. Love you, Tom. Yeah, so my parents have been really, really brave and really supportive. But
I
I've
can
tried,
hear,
yeah,
yeah, how
I've
hard.
tried to be as open with them. But I've also tried to protect my creative process. So that's why I didn't involve them early on in the writing, because I knew that their opinions meant a lot to me. And I wanted to get my version of the story out first. And then I was open to their
Yeah.
feedback, and I actually did make a few changes. Nothing major, because they were fine with it pretty much. Yeah. So yeah, good question.
And in terms of that sounds quite life changing. Is that the most life changing moment for you?
In terms of writing the book, the family stuff.
Yeah. How did it impact you in terms of, in terms of all the things across your life, all the, special interviews you've done, like how does it stand in terms of the importance of expressing yourself and the creativity as you mentioned?
Yeah, well, I mean, telling this story and writing it, working on it, the emotional journey, the psychological journey, the theological journey. I reread most of the New Testament. This is just goes far beyond anything I've ever done in my media career, because um, most of the stuff I've worked on has been like daily turnaround, or at most a few weeks. So to properly tell a story and really flesh it out, but also to have so much on the line personally in terms of um, putting my life story out there, but also as you've been kind of raising like what it means for my family and all the people in my life, my new family, which I've just started, my partner
Yeah.
Amanda and my baby. Um, yeah, it's all tied in there. So there's a lot on the line, and it was a deep, deep creative process.
We have a few questions in that regard around your bubba. So I might conglomerate them into kind of a more succinct one. So thank you so much, everyone who has obviously a question around your son. I've got, so I guess the summary of the questions that have been sent in is, how does your childhood impact the way you want to parent your son and or faith going forward?
Yeah, that's an amazing question, and I think that's what I like about the book coming full circle, is that it raises the question: how do you? We all go through big changes in our life. We all grow up with things that potentially don't fit for us. And for me, that was in the religious sphere. For other people, it might be different things like their sexuality, for example. The editor of my story is a lesbian, and she said this story was really poignant for me because it felt like it was like my coming out story in some ways. And that was an amazing reaction. I loved hearing that reaction, that people from different backgrounds could relate.
Yeah.
So it's really made me think about how do I take the lessons from my journey, but not try and overdo passing that on to my own children. Because I think we so often, I think parents, from what I've learned, often fall into that trap that they have a particular experience, but it's all so subjective. Like this whole book is so subjective, which for me is the beauty of it, because it's different to what I've done with my journalism, although it involves a lot of crossover. So I want to take all the lessons I've learned, but not ram them down my children's throat. You know, I want to give them the space and the support. And actually, that's the lesson a little bit from my family story was about staying emotionally connected despite the stuff we went through, and that's what really held us together as a family at the end of the day. But yeah, I grew up with an upbringing that was too strict. It was overbearing. I was forced into things that ultimately weren't right for me. So I think it pushes me in a more liberal direction in terms of the kind of parent I want to be, but I don't know how I'm going to face the challenges coming up. I don't necessarily truly understand my own biases. Surely they're gonna come out, and surely some of them will be good, and some of them might not be, and I'll have to correct them. And I guess the short answer to the question is I don't know. I'm working it out and trying to learn the lessons of the past.
Good, good insights there. I can see in the comments a lot of support. So thank you so much, everyone who's sharing the
Yeah,
love,
thank you.
the love hearts. We really appreciate it. And thank you for everyone who's sending so many questions. We're probably a little bit overwhelmed. Just shortly, we've had a question around where you can get the book if it will be an audio book. It can be purchased at Booktopia right now. If you'd like a signed copy, we have limited number of signed copies, so feel free to jump onto that in our link in bio. The book is called Speaking in Tongues by Tom Tilley, if you've just joined. And there was another question, if it will come out as an audio book. I think Tom will be best placed to answer that.
Yeah, you're going to be able to get the audio book from release date on Wednesday. So it's recorded. I spent 5 days in the studio reading the story and, trying to give the best performance. That's like a long form piece of performance art. I don't know how many hours it's going to end up, but I recorded about 20 hours.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it'll probably trim down to like 12 or 13 or something like that. But yeah, I really put a lot of passion into the audiobook. Obviously, as someone who works in radio, I wanted the audiobook to be good. And there's a few interesting little bonus bits in the audiobook that you might not get from every author. One, and you may not like this, but you may, I sing in the first in the first chapter. And when I get to the speaking in tongues bits in the audiobook, I was sitting there in the studio thinking, well, how do I do the speaking in tongues bits, like these kind of random syllables? Am I just gonna sort of read out the syllables? Well, that will sound kind of crazy. And I looked at the audio engineer and said, do I just actually like speak in tongues? I haven't tried to do this for like 20 years. So I just went for it and sort of practiced the old speaking in tongues thing that I did as a kid, which was so weird. And that's all in the audiobook.
And just finally, Tom, This will be our last question. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. What message do you want readers to take for the book? Take from the book, sorry.
Yeah, I'm happy to stick around and take more questions if you want, by the way. An old friend has just chimed in with the comments, and I recognize the last name. He was a friend that was from our church. Great family from the church. Clarity Reunion. And that's a question about this gospel band that we had as kids in the band. Yeah, anyway, what do I want people to take? What I want people to take from this book is if you're reading this book and you're in a life that you inherited, that you didn't get to choose, that doesn't feel right in some way, that you have like deep doubts or questions about it, I want this book to encourage you that it's okay to explore those questions, and it may drag you into some deep uncertainty and some grey areas and some tough transitions. But I hope my story, because of where my life ended up in such a happy place, that there is kind of light at the end of the tunnel of unpacking a life that you didn't choose, and that by going through that process, you can work out who you really are, get a sense of the life you want to live, and then you can go out and live it and have an amazing time. And so, yeah, it's just an encouragement to anyone having to unpack things they inherited that don't make sense.
That's some great synopsis, explanation. In a nutshell, yeah, it's probably the easiest way to put it, I think, coming from the author, coming from your words, Tom. So,
hey, I don't want to end it just yet.
Really
I feel like people are just joining and we're just getting some interaction going on here. Are there any other questions?
I think it must be the end of the day for everyone, and they've all joined. Yeah, we've got. I'll just speed look through. Okay, we've got.
Someone's just said, very encouraging for me as a gay man who grew up in a Pentecostal church. Yes, I hope that this story would be encouraging for you, having come from that background. I totally get what that would have been like. In our church, gay people were going to hell. And if you were having those thoughts, you had to go and talk to the pastor about it. And there wasn't like formal gay conversion therapy, but it would have been along the same lines. And I can't imagine the kind of damage that would have done for people growing up. And I had friends who were gay in our church, and coming out was very, very hard for them. Obviously only happened years after they left and had to walk away from that community. And there's just, that's heavy. So yeah, I hope the book is some encouragement. Trish has just chimed in. Trish is one of Client Liaison's biggest fans. She has traveled to so many gigs. Yeah, so shout out to Trish. She's a big fan of the briefing too. Did my siblings leave the church as well? Trish, you got to read the book to find out the answer to that one. But I'm one of four.
Yeah, we've got a question. We've got a question from Bezard. Is your dad still following the rules of that church?
That's in Act 2 Act 3 in the book. Yeah.
There we go. Long form response for you in the book, Bezard.
Yeah. There's tens of thousands of words on that question.
Just a bit of reading there. We've got another question more around sort of documentaries, which might be interesting for you, Tom. We've got Cameric. Could you see yourself doing David Faria style dark tourist documentaries?
Yes. That is one of my exact career ambitions that I haven't achieved yet. I really want to start building some great documentary series, and David Faria is an example of someone who does it really well, really inquisitive, really human, and in his case, quite funny. Not sure if I can quite bring that the way he does, but I'd love to do that. Louis Theroux's great as well. Some of John Safran's theories from several years ago also a bit of a role model. So I'd love to get more into that space. That's something I want to get into in the next few years. And I kind of wanted to write this book first because I think it could be in this kind of space, probably not directly on my own story. I feel like the book was the right place for that. But yeah, want to get into documentary for sure.
There you go. Look out for future Tom. He'll be on our screens. I'm sure we'll be waiting for those docos and all the things that come out of future things. That'll be very exciting, I'm sure. We had a question, someone just asking about publication. Just for those, I know people have only just tuned in, clocking off work and the like. Yes, the book will be sent out from Booktopia if you've ordered from us on publication date, which is this Wednesday. So look out in your mailboxes in the very next few days. It'll be on the way via the post. So thank the postman when they, or post person when they come past. They'll probably be dropping it into your mailbox very, very soon. So yeah, big support. Thank you for the support, everyone, so far. If you haven't yet got Tom's book, you can certainly get a copy from Booktopia right now. The link is in our bio, so you can check it out after this. And we do have limited signed copies by Tom from last week, freshly signed, that you can also get from Booktopia too. So without further ado, I know this chat, Tom, has obviously been a very sensitive one, not just for yourself, but obviously for your community and the Booktopia community at large as well. So I just want to make sure that for those watching, you know that you can reach out to Lifeline Australia anytime, 24/7 hours a day. And, you know, they offer excellent price support. It's a safe place to go. If this chat has brought up anything for you that, you know, you'd like to feel reach out and get support from. Yeah, there's also lovely resources over on Lifeline on Instagram too. So hopefully that will help you there in this space. We obviously hope to broadcast as many authors' points of view as possible as well. So we really appreciate the time that Tom has given us today. So so thank you so much, Tom, for your insights into speaking in tongues. I'm sure there'll be a lot to unpack very, very soon. So for those who don't know, this Wednesday, when the book does come out, Tom will be sitting down with a close friend. You might be able to guess who it might be. You may already know. But on the Facebook page, on Booktopia's Facebook page this Wednesday night at 7 p.m., you can learn more about Tom, and you'll be sitting down with Kirk Docker. You may recall from the ABC program Can't Ask That. So I'm sure it will be similar to this, but probably way more exciting. I'm sure Kirk's going to have a lot of different questions to ask Tom. So yeah, definitely want to learn a little bit more, especially I would say in terms of the deeper, longer form questions. Yeah, you definitely don't want to miss that. So we've got a link in our bio for the Facebook event, but you can just tune in from 7 live on the Booktopia Facebook page. So I think we'll wrap it there, Tom.
Yeah, look, I guess we've got to leave people wanting a bit more for the chat with Kirk Docker on Wednesday night. Otherwise, I would sit here and talk all day, and you know, probably no one wants that.
It's all good, but anyone who has not been able to tune in live, this will be in our feed very, very soon. So you can definitely watch it back if there's anything you maybe didn't get to, you missed the beginning or you want to listen to something again. It will be in our feed very, very soon as well. So yeah, without further ado, thank you so much for being here and tuning in and sticking around. You can, of course, get Speaking in Tongues by Tom Tilley right now from booktopia.com.au, and we ship to Australia and New Zealand. So for those over in New Zealand, you're very welcome to get a signed copy from Tom as well. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you very soon.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank you.
everyone.
Yeah, thanks everyone for their comments and every little love heart and like. I really appreciate you engaging with this whole journey of this book coming out. Like it's such a personal piece of work. So to have people reading about your life and connecting with it in a positive way is such a beautiful thing and a real privilege for me. So yeah, thanks for that. And shout out to all my old friends. Quite a few of you I've seen know me from real life or follow me on Instagram or used to go to the same church as me. Um, love you,
Yeah,
Jara.
wow. Thanks so much, everyone, from Tom's circles and in real life and everything. So, yeah, obviously, everyone is going to be able to learn the Tom Tilley story very, very soon, and we look forward to sharing it with you all.
Sweet. Okay, catch you later.
Catch you later. Bye. Bye, guys.